Trump's path to 270 explained, examining the 12 battlegrounds, Pennsylvania or die, not so fast, and what to watch for when. Tonight, this is Steve Elliott with a very special VIP briefing, your video cheat sheet for watching the returns coming in this evening on Election Day. A great day for America, a great day for this world as Americans get to go to the polls and vote and select our next president. Let's get right to the analysis. First of all, I want to let you know about a great video we've got linked to on grassfire.com that was made by a third party. It's an inspiring video of this Trump revolution that we've seen sweep across the country in rallies of tens of thousands of people showing up at Trump rallies. 57,000 showed up in Pennsylvania, 35,000 in Georgia every night, 5 times yesterday, 5 times on Sunday, over and over again. And then the spontaneous rallies and movements of tractor caravans and car caravans and truck caravans and boat parades. Endless. You need to watch this video. It's very, very inspiring. I think you'll enjoy it. Let's get right to our cheat sheet. Of course, it's the path to 270. We're looking at the map of 2016, and we can see where the president won his victory. Now, again, his victory, he didn't just win 270. He technically won 306, although he ended up with 304 because 2 electors changed their vote, and he ended up with 304 officially, but 306. So there's actually a little bit of margin for losing, but the pundits are looking at 12 or 13 battlegrounds. Some are including Texas at a battleground. Let me just say this. If the president loses Texas, it's going to be very, very difficult, perhaps impossible for him to win the election. So we're not going to look at Texas. We're going to assume that Texas is going to go with the president, because if he loses Texas, he needs to win all of the other 2016 states, plus at least one state that Hillary won. So we're not going to look at Texas today. We're looking at 12 other battlegrounds. Let's start with the 9 battleground states that the president won in 2016. And we've got links for this all on grassfire.com. Trafalgar, who has the most innovative polling methodology and who was correct in 2016, shows the president up in almost all of these battlegrounds that he won in 2016. Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania. The most recent poll out of Iowa also shows the president with a commanding 7-point lead. Wisconsin, Trafalgar has Biden up slightly, almost a dead heat in Wisconsin. So based on the polling of Trafalgar, now of course the national flyover media polls show most bigger gaps in these states, but they are showing that their polls are narrowing as well, tightening, as they like to say. Now of these states, the key linchpin state, of course, is Florida. Without Florida, like without Texas, without Florida, it becomes very, very, very difficult for the president to create a map to 270, because he just barely makes it over the edge. He has to basically win every other state that he won in 2016, assuming he wins none of the Hillary states. But Florida makes the map extremely, extremely difficult. We're also going to take a couple states off right off the top. We're going to take Iowa off because of the 7-point lead in the Des Moines Register poll, which is trusted by both sides of the aisle as a pretty definitive poll. The president had a 7-point lead going into Iowa 4 years ago, and he has a 7-point lead now with huge momentum, with the Des Moines Register saying that Biden is fading, and we think this is happening across the country. Biden is fading in the key battleground states, and there hasn't been much talk at all, if you've noticed, about another key battleground state, Ohio. So we're taking Ohio off, and we're looking at these 6 battleground states that the president won. And here's the interesting thing of the math. From 306, you can lose any 2 of those 6 states and still get to 270. You can lose North Carolina and Michigan, North Carolina and Georgia, North Carolina and Arizona, Wisconsin and North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and any other state. So it's very interesting if you listen to the liberal punditocracy, whatever we want to call them. They hinge everything on Pennsylvania. Nate Silver, who was famously wrong in 2016, says that both Biden and Trump need to win Pennsylvania or they become underdog. Now, here's the interesting thing. The president could lose Pennsylvania, or Pennsylvania, as is expected, will not be decided tonight because the way that they're counting ballots for days after the election. It could go well into the week. But the president can win 270 without Pennsylvania. In fact, he can lose Pennsylvania and North Carolina and still get to 270 if he runs the table in the rest of the states. And that's not even winning back any of the Hillary states. Let's look at the states that Hillary won, which are battlegrounds: Nevada, New Hampshire, and Minnesota. I think you start to understand why these are so important, why the president's been campaigning so hard. Minnesota, he lost very closely. No Republican has won Minnesota since Richard Nixon. But the president barely lost Minnesota, and he's been campaigning hard in Minnesota. And as we know, the rioting started in Minnesota. The 6 months of rioting that we've had, 5 months of rioting that we've had, he's campaigned hard in Minnesota, and the polls show he's very close. Trafalgar has him within the margin of error, 3 points within Biden. He's campaigned hard in Nevada as well. The reason is if you add up 10 and 16, it overcomes another loss. Win those 2 states, and you can lose 3 of the 6 states that President won in 2016. Could lose Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania and still get to 270. So this is why the president has campaigned so hard in these 3 states, and specifically Nevada and Minnesota. 2 states to watch very closely. How about timing of things? The first polls close, and we've got all this on Grassfire. When all the battleground states, when their polls close, if you go to grassfire.com, you can see that article there. We've got the timing of when the polls close. We also have the time when these battleground states were called in 2016, most of them late into the night, which we would expect tonight if many of them may not even want to call their elections tonight, or Facebook and Twitter won't let us make calls, so we'll see what happens. Georgia is one of the first states, and if the president, if the exit polling and the pundits are saying that he's losing and the votes looks like he's losing in Georgia, it could be a very long night. He needs to win Georgia. We expect him to win Georgia. At 7 o'clock, one of the first polls to close. 7:30, we have North Carolina and Ohio polls closing. North Carolina is very significant because the states count their early ballots differently. North Carolina actually counts them all ahead, and we're expecting that they will announce the results of all their early voting right at 7:30. Now, don't be alarmed if it shows a significant lead for Biden. That's expected. And then the day of the votes today will hopefully more than compensate for that. So the 2 to watch at 7:30. Closing times is Ohio and North Carolina. 8 o'clock. 2 big ones. Florida and Pennsylvania polls close. Again, Florida, like North Carolina, counts its early ballots ahead of time. So there will be a huge data dump right at 8 o'clock, we're expecting. And that will give us a lot of information. In fact, things to watch. Miami-Dade County, because the signals out of Miami-Dade County were that the president was doing extremely well, especially because of Latino voters. We could see a huge red wave literally carried by Black and Latino voters. Remember, the president won 8% of the Black vote in 2016. He's polled extremely high nationwide in some of the polling, 25, 30%. We're not expecting that, but if he could double the 8% to 15 or 16%, if he could add even 5% to his Latino vote, it should lead to a Trump reelection and perhaps a red wave. Now, Pennsylvania polls close at 8, but we don't expect there will be much news specifically out of Pennsylvania at 8 o'clock. Those are the key states timeline. We've got more for you at grassfire.com. The key thing, of course, is to get out and vote. This enthusiasm, there's a movement underway. President Trump is at the head of this movement. The Republican Party is the populist party. It's the party of the people. It's now the party of middle-class working Americans. Joe Biden has received most of the dark money. Most of the money from the PACs has come to Joe Biden. Joe Biden has received most of the money from the wealthy zip codes in America. In fact, almost his entire fundraising advantage has been in wealthy zip codes. The president has had more donors under $100 than Joe Biden. He's had more small donors than Joe Biden. Joe Biden has built his campaign off of PAC money and big dollar donors. The Democrats are now the party of big business and big money, and President Trump is holding rallies that draw tens of thousands of people and who spontaneously do this. We've never seen a Republican candidate do this. In my lifetime, a Republican candidate for president could generate so much excitement at the grassroots level. This is a movement of the people, and I expect to see a red wave tonight. This is to help you. Hopefully, this has been helpful to you to as you watch tonight. The returns come in. We're just hopeful. Either way, we're hopeful. We're hopeful because we've seen a grassroots movement begin among people who are thirsting for freedom. This election is about freedom. It is about coronavirus. It is about the shutdown. Let's be honest. It's about whether we want our freedom back and we want our kids back in school and we want our schools open and we want our businesses opened and we want to return, have our lives back. This is a thirst for freedom, and the president has tapped into this. We think that's going to come through tonight in a big way. Please go to Grassfire, get more details on this, including all the key information on the battleground states and the timing of the closing of the polls. It's going to be a fascinating evening. Prayerfully, hopefully, we will see a red wave tonight. This is Steve Elliott with Grassfire.